It is true that there's a lot of discussion going on in some of the capitals of the Eurozone about getting out of the Euro. In Rome, in Madrid, in Dublin, there's a lot of dissatisfaction with remaining in the Euro because of the loss of sovereign control over the exchange rate and over interest rates. Nevertheless, and so therefore people in Iceland who are opposed to Eurozone entry say, but look, there's all this discussion going on, the Eurozone is going to break up, so that's the last thing we want to join. I think this discussion about leaving the Eurozone that's going on in some places will not come to very much, because the costs of going out and making your currency then vulnerable to speculation would simply be too high. So in the end, these countries will stay in. And if Iceland stays out of the Euro, or there's another possibility which I'll come to in a minute, if it stays out of the Euro, its currency will continue to be subject to speculative attack, which will just mess up the whole economy. So I think there are certainly advantages about going for Eurozone entry. But, and one other of the advantages, in addition to macroeconomic stability, one other advantage is simply that it would subject Iceland's bureaucracy to common European standards, and that would might help to offset the bureaucracy's present tendencies towards nepotism and corruption and those other things. However, and this is my last point, there is an alternative to joining the Eurozone, or at least there's a prelude to it, and that is to form an agreement with Norway that, first of all, the Icelandic krona would be managed so as to shadow the Norwegian krona, and secondly, that the Norwegian central bank would stand ready to provide currency swap support to the Icelandic central bank. This would certainly have some substantial advantages for Iceland, as well as some disadvantages. But the big question is, what would be the interest of Norway in such an agreement? Well, Norway might see a number of advantages in having such an agreement with Iceland. For one thing, Norway would be less isolated in the European Economic Area if Iceland were to stay out of the Eurozone. And for another thing, Norway might be better placed to defend its fisheries policy against the destructive EU fishery policy if Iceland did not go into the Euro and did not have to adopt the EU fisheries policy. So, for those reasons, Norway might have an interest in helping Iceland to stay out of the Eurozone, and therefore in making a cooperative agreement in terms of the currency. On the other hand, it is possible that Norway's interest might actually be to see Iceland going in first to the Eurozone in order to see what the EU, or the European Commission, did about Iceland's fisheries policy, in the hope that the European Commission might moderate its destructive fisheries policy in its application to Iceland, one, because Iceland has the reputation of having actually managed fisheries well, as in the last issue of The Economist, and secondly, because they see that fisheries is going to be more important in Iceland in post-crisis than it has been in the past decade. So for those two reasons, the EC might somewhat moderate its fisheries policy, and that might be then good news for those people in Norway who wish to see Norway in the Eurozone, but who are blocked by the fisheries issue. Okay, so clearly these are really important issues to be clarified with the Norwegian government. Clearly the Icelandic government has a very complex decision ahead of it on the EU and EU membership. And clearly, too, there is a good case for the Icelandic government to call elections in order to seek a fresh mandate from the citizens.